Alistair. I'm here today with Alistair Callendar, who I was introduced to by Mark and is one of those people with whom I'm mostly unfamiliar, which is a person who actually had a corporate career. Well done you. Well done you. And then decided to enter this world of running your own businesses. So running your own business, which is Gate8 Luggage. So you've got a product and you sell it. And so we'll hear more about that. But yeah, if you could just give us a bit of background about this journey that you've been on. You left your corporate career. At what point? What were you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for this opportunity. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of took the traditional kind of route. I went to university, graduated in engineering, and then joined graduate program with an American-based software company called Oracle. Wow. So, spent 7 years as a kind of consultant with those guys, sort of honing my sort of IT consultancy skills, doing coding, a bit of sales. So it was a real broad sort of brush, lots of different, on the graduate program, you went into different areas of the organisation. So great grounding experience for me. Left there after 7 years and joined Sky, so Sky TV. Again, in a kind of IT software background, but did lots of different things. Moved into some of the more engineering, broadcast side of the business, software testing, commissioning of interactive services. So I spent about 12 years with those guys. And in the sort of last three to 5 years, I guess, I was really more in project management. So I did all the kind of professional sort of Prince 2 project management courses. And in the latter stages, went into project program management. So my career spanned about 23 years in IT. And it was during the last few years at Sky where I was doing lots of travelling. A lot of my projects were based in Scotland, which is where Sky had a lot of their core customer and billing sort of infrastructure. So I was flying from London to Edinburgh, if not weekly, it was monthly. And it was really during those last few years where I started to experience the challenges of frequent business travel and some of the kind of looking at some of the shortcuts to make it a bit more enjoyable and stress-free. And it was at the time when the low-cost carriers, so EasyJet, Ryanair, were really going after that business traveller. But they were putting some challenges in our way. And the main challenges were around the luggage you could take on board. And as someone who was 6 a.m. flight on a Monday and flying back on a Thursday, very typical business traveller, I wanted to avoid baggage check-in. I just wanted to get off the plane, first in the taxi queue and get to the office, and also avoid some of the extra costs associated with baggage check-in. But what I found was that we were using a whole host of different airlines, and I never quite knew if the bag I was taking, or the bags, if I was carrying a separate laptop bag, would be accepted as cabin luggage. And there were a few times where I got caught out. Frustratingly, had to check the luggage in or pay a £50 penalty because I had an oversized bag. So I decided, that I would change the world. And I designed if you read my story on the website, and if you believe it, I designed on the back of a boarding card a great new luggage product, that would be the panacea to all of these issues. A bag that was universally accepted across all the airlines. So I started designing and scribbling. And for those who are old enough to remember Blue Peter, I was starting to make prototypes in my garage, stick bits on existing bags. And then eventually I arrived at what I thought was a decent kind of working prototype. It was a 2-in-1 bag. So you could attach the laptop or tech section to the garment, so you were traveling with only one bag.
Oh, right.
And I kind of tested it on a few of my trips. I mean, it looked pretty awful, but it kind of worked. The concept was there, and it worked. So then I decided, I guess to my wife's horror, that I'd use up my annual leave, and I flew off to China to go and visit some factories to try and get some proper professional samples made.
Yeah.
So I kind of targeted a trade fair that was going on in China, and met various factories, and then went to their various sample rooms, and we started to make prototypes. So just refining the process and trying to understand a bit more around the manufacturing. And then ultimately I arrived at a kind of pre-production proof of concept. And still employed, still working. And started to then socialise this product around some of the retail. So I was able to get in front of some buyers and kind of pitch the concept of, here's the perfect bag. So it was a modular bag that you could detach and attach the laptop or tech section. So you had the benefits of travelling with one bag when they were attached, and it was sized, when they were joined together, still sized for cabin approved. But when you boarded the aircraft or you arrived at your destination, you could unzip that smaller section and go to the office, the client or the conference, and leave the garment bag in the hotel. And I started to get some quite positive feedback, so from the buyers, from the retail, saying, there was no brand aimed specifically at the business traveller. And with the growth in business travel and the exponential growth in the low-cost market, there was an audience that were not being listened to, and it was a growing audience. And if I could grow or develop the brand to resonate with that audience, I think we were onto something. But what I did do, I maintained my employment for about 18 to 24 months, while still growing the brand and making, putting all the kind of foundations together for a business. So getting the business plan developed, getting further refining the proof of concept, critically getting some IP, some intellectual property. So I was able to register the various designs I had with the patent office, and taking some kind of entrepreneurial startup courses. So, there were various, the British Library is a great example. They ran a number of courses. So I was able to, grow my entrepreneurial skill set while still maintaining, an income. And I think integrity is, an important aspect of any business and any, even in your professional life. So I was still, whilst I was burning a candle at both ends, trying to develop a business and be a professional to my employer. It's tough, but I think, I wasn't going to shortcut my employer. So I was still delivering a great service, and I was a diligent and professional employee, whilst having that ambition to take the brave pill at some point, and formally launch the business. I mean, I'd already had a website. I was making small sales through Amazon direct, and also a growing number of independent luggage stores were starting to buy and retail my product. So I was kind of growing the confidence in what I was starting to develop. But I did have, predefined exit criteria for my employment. I said, once I reach X, Y, and Z, and one of those was I wanted an investor on board. I talked about at the beginning. I come from an engineering background, and we tend to be quite risk averse. We like to see the kind of science, the numbers, the proof. I was never going to put my house up as collateral. I had a a wife, a family, and I had my own.
By the way, you've still got them.
I've still got the wife, and I've still got the two slightly grown up now children. So yeah, still that's a tick in the box. I've still got that, just about. I don't know how. So yeah, I had some criteria. I had some lines, some red lines, some lines I wouldn't cross. But I still had my own ambition. It was something I was very keen to execute against, and crucially, I had the support of my one wife. And on a journey that I was going through, sacrificing a good salary, a good career. I think that open communication is really important.
Yeah.
So look, I was honest. I'd had a good career, but there were, I was getting to the stage in my career where I wasn't as fulfilled and I wasn't as excited as I was perhaps 5-10 years ago. And there were other things in my life I wanted to explore. And one of them was this start a business and go on that entrepreneurial journey. And I think being honest, it pays dividends, because I think all entrepreneurs will recognise there are going to be some really frightening times in that journey. And if you have that open dialogue, talking about them, sharing them, I mean, not necessarily always with your partner, because sometimes there are some real scary moments, and you don't want to expose them to that at that point. So just having a network. And going, again, I go back to, say, the British Library or other, BNI, other networking group.
Right here, where we are right now.
Exactly. That was what was really interesting about, why I got in touch with Mark, because a like-minded group of people as your support network, I think, is key. Because it's, in the early days, it's a very lonely and can be very isolating journey. And, I look back, I mean, we've been established now almost 10 years.
Oh, wow.
But as a direct result of COVID-19, we've almost gone kind of full circle. The business, I've had to, rethink the business. Our customers are people who travel. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, no pun intended. People aren't traveling. So, we've had, so I've had to shrink some of the team. The business is split. I mean, if I kind of fast forward from where I first started to where the business is now, we have two core customer base. We have our B2C, direct to consumer, which is through our website, through our retail partners, through Amazon, and then we have our B2B, and that's the B2B bit was the very fast growth, and the really exciting bit in the last 3 years of our business, which was the airline relationship. So we, really proud to say, we were providing luggage to crew for two of the largest European airlines. So EasyJet,
that's amazing.
They came to us, used us to design, manufacture, and distribute, tens of thousands of pieces of luggage to their crew and pilot. So a great business, and but it took many years to build that trust and build that capability. So we'll survive. We'll survive this because we're not dependent purely on one channel for sales. Yeah. And I think having that kind of distribution and non-dependency on one particular channel has really helped us create a very robust and financially secure business model. But so I guess the point I'm making is that, and if you take COVID-19, but you go back to, say, 9/11 or the ash cloud, any business there'll be some disruption at some point, and you need to be able to build not only a robust business model and be financially astute and know the numbers, but have people you can go to. Even if it's just pick up the phone, have a coffee, and say, this is what we're going through, this is what we've experienced. and someone who kind of understands. So that's why I'm really excited about what you guys are doing, I think. And I think there are lots of people in the corporate world who perhaps aren't perhaps fulfilled or have ambition, but they don't know where to go to perhaps get the inspiration or get the coaching, get the training, get the mentoring. They kind of just soldier on.
I think, God, you've packed so much into this. I don't even know where to start, because in a way,
I'm excited.
But the story that I've just heard you tell is so evocative, because it speaks on so many levels that we're talking about here, from how you identify your pain point, right? You were a business traveler. This is a classic kind of story about where do ideas come from? Yeah. I heard you say, I was on these planes on and off all day long, having to pay these excess luggage fees and all this sort of stuff, and going, how can I sort this out so I don't have to stand in these bloody queues all day long, right? And so there was kind of like, that's that light bulb moment that we talk about, where of course not everybody has a light bulb moment, but I think that, one of the things that we're very clear on is think about all those little times where something just bugs you and you're just like, how can I sort this out? Can I sort this out, right? And I think that was something that, was that moment. And then the other thing, which clearly you've kind of glossed over, is that moment where the idea goes into, okay, what am I going to do about this? Clearly you have no manufacturing background. You've never worked with a factory in China. You don't know how to sew. And I'm assuming that you didn't have a friend that made luggage that just happened to be your best mate, right? And you're talking about this kind of like prototyping that you're doing in your garage. I'm just trying to imagine this in my head, right? This quite substantial guy who's come from an engineering background, who suddenly wants to manufacture luggage, which you've clearly just made sound like it was just like, and then I just made a piece of luggage and I took it around. No, that's not how it works.
No. I can sew now, and I can, no, you're absolutely right. And I think, kind of glossed over it. I mean, when I was operating at great risk, because I didn't have any of the skills that you've just listed. I mean, I bought a ticket, went to a trade show. I could have gone to any factory, and they could have sold me anything. I could have left with a container of carrier bags, thinking that's the product. So one of the things that I did quite early on was employ a third party in China who had the skills that I needed. Right. And it's like...
And how did you find them, just out of interest? Was it just...
Through my network. Through my network.
Oh, through your network.
So I went out to my network and said, look, I'm looking for some skills in China that have the following, things like sourcing,
right,
quality control, and I did a lot of research, around, ISO, British standards. In some respects, coming from a kind of an engineering background, helped in terms of the kind of structured processes that I knew I needed.
Yeah.
But when you dig a bit deeper, I had no idea how to test luggage. You talk about stitching, and you're absolutely right. How many stitches per each? What's the quality of the thread they're using? All of these things. So I knew I had to get up to speed, but I wanted to run a business. I didn't want to become a sewing expert.
No, fair enough. No, I agree. I mean, we talk about, look at your skills gap,
Yeah,
right? And think about where you can acquire those skills and
yeah,
who in your network, or if you use Google or whatever means you're going to use, but figure out what do you not know, right? Like you
absolutely.
have to just acknowledge, I don't know about
Yeah,
this stuff. Similar to you, in 1994, I had my second son, and my first son was only 2, and I was looking for a baby sling. Similar to you, it was like, how
yeah,
come all these slings are so bloody complicated? They got straps and buckles and this and that, and they seem a mess. And so I started looking around. Eventually, I discovered a sling in America, tried that out, saved my life, and at that point decided I was going to manufacture baby slings.
yeah,
Knew nothing about manufacturing, knew nothing about, I did sew, I did know how to sew, but
yeah,
I didn't know anything about pattern making, nothing. And I remember at that point thinking, where do they make clothes? At this point, Commercial Street and Whitechapel was still a
yeah,
place where there were a lot of factories. So I just literally went door to door at that
yeah,
point, and I took my sling. I was like, can you guys make
yeah,
this for me? And I found initially a factory and a pattern cutter, and then I bought a trade magazine, which was Draper's Record. So, back in the day. And yeah, but I was clear, like, I don't know how to do this stuff. I
yeah.
just knew that this sling had saved my life, and that, it could
It's the same.
potentially save a lot of other mothers a lot of headache.
Yeah, no, but it's the same principle. I did the same just in China. Walk the trade show with a bag. Can you make this? I mean, yeah, I mean, now I would consider myself, very experienced
Yeah.
in that whole life cycle of product design through to manufacturing, but at a level I'm comfortable with. I'm not an expert in CAD. So
Yeah.
when I have a new product, I'll go to some of these platforms like People Per Hour or Freelance and say, I'll pitch a brief. Who wants to help me produce 3D product design images for this product?
Right.
I now know, in terms of production line, I'll visit factories in China now and I'll have enough experience and enough skills to know that's a good, reliable factory just by looking at how they've laid out the production flow, the goods materials, how they're handling goods, how they're batch processing. I will then do an audit on some of their testing documentation.
Mm-hmm.
So I now, from a high level, I'm very experienced and a expert in the kind of production at a high level.
Yeah.
But again, as you've alluded to, know your skill set, know what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, ultimately, I'm responsible and accountable for those products that come out at the end. So I have to make the final decision, and I will rely on my office in China to say, right, we've been to the factory, here are, and we now have documents in terms of factory acceptance levels, environmental, social responsibility. Because the bigger the brand that we've become, so when you're working with brands such as EasyJet, Jet2, the last thing that they want is one of their products to be manufactured in a factory that has child labour.
Yeah.
So it's now my responsibility to make sure we do social corporate responsibility audits on all of these environmental audits. So if we know that if they want a particular fabric that's dyed to a particular Pantone, that they're not just the byproduct of that isn't pumped into a river.
Yeah. I mean, you have to think, obviously, the bigger you get, the more you have to consider all these options. But even, I often say as well that even at the early stage, when you're producing anything that, consumers are using, whether it's makeup, skin products, all that sort of stuff, you really have to, even in the initial stages, you have to go out to a market with a certain level of testing. Absolutely. I remember even with my baby sling, we needed to get some sort of standard that was for the, the baby industry, so that when we went to talk to John Lewis, as an example, we were able to say, yes, we tick this box, we do this, we do that. And I think that's, again, where finding those mentors, finding those experts, finding those people in the early days who can get you who can provide you with the information that you probably have no clue about. I know I didn't have any clue about any of that.
You don't know what you don't know.
Sling,
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And again, from an engineering perspective, it's better, it's more efficient to design and engineer those things in at the beginning.
Yeah.
Than to try and re-engineer those once you have a production flow, because they're more expensive, they're more costly. So but you don't know what you don't know, and that's
absolutely no, you don't. And exactly. And I think that is one of the benefits of being an older person, for me anyway, is that I'm willing to accept that I don't know everything, but also I'm sure, like yourself, we don't even realize how big our network is until you start speaking to people and they go, oh yeah, I know somebody that could help you with that. I know someone. Yeah. Whereas, often when you're younger, you are going to be scurrying around to try and get that kind of support from, different organizations. I mean, as you identified, and I certainly found, one of the reasons why we're doing this is because it can be really lonely as an older person starting in business.